this morning?
Good morning. Yes, we do.
All right, good
All
deal.
smiles.
And Tommy, we have you on the line?
You sure do, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, Tommy.
Good morning. How are you all this morning?
I think we're good, aren't we?
Yeah, we're good.
Just tell me when you're ready. We'll wait till Dave gets back and then we're set. Okay. I better put my glasses on if I'm going to read anything. Okay, good morning, everybody. YouTube's on, Dave. We're good. Morning, everybody on YouTube. And so we'll start this regular meeting. Tuesday, September 1st, it's 10 o'clock. Melissa, if you'll lead us in the pledge, and then right after that, Mr. Minlove will do the invocation. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear, kind, loving, gracious, and merciful Heavenly Father, we bow our heads before Thee with gratitude in our hearts. Gratitude for the many beautiful blessings that Thou hast bestowed upon us. We're grateful for the opportunity we have to be here in Gila County, for the good people that are here, the beautiful surroundings that we have in this land. And we are grateful for the opportunity to serve Thee, to serve others. Heavenly Father, we are grateful to be a part of Gila County, grateful for the Board of Supervisors, and do pray, Heavenly Father, that Thy Spirit will attend us here this day. There are decisions that are made that affect the lives of others, and we pray always that we will have Thy Spirit to guide and direct so that good can come from all decisions that are made. Pray for those that are sick and afflicted, especially those that have been afflicted by the pandemic, that they may be blessed and strengthened and comforted as need be. We're grateful for Thy blessings of containing the fires that have beset the county so devastatingly, that the firemen and firefighters and those that have put themselves at risk, we're grateful for them, pray on their behalf for their safety and protection, and grateful for that they have been able to gain control of the fires to the extent. We pray for moisture in the land that will beautify it, sustain it, and all that lives here. And Heavenly Father, wilt Thou be with us? Again, we pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, James. Okay, so moving on to 2A, information, discussion, action to approve the Superior Court's fiscal year 2021 Fill the Gap grant application for enhanced criminal case scanning in the amount of $3,843.75. Jonathan, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Before you today for your consideration is a Fill the Gap grant application. Court administration has operated that grant with our limited jurisdiction courts, that's the JP courts and city courts, for over 5 years. The program allowed our limited jurisdiction courts to implement an additional scanning station in all of the courts. As the limited jurisdiction courts moved on to a digital case management system with document imaging, our work through the grant allowed us to digitize our case files without a lot of back scanning, which is very labor intensive. So we would like to continue on with the program, which does enhance our ability to process criminal cases. And this grant, which is in front of you, would allow us to do that. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. Tommy, do you have any questions for Jonathan?
I don't have any questions, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank Jonathan for continuing to find every grant he can. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, madam.
Tim?
No, Jonathan, just thank you. Appreciate reaching out.
Mr. Supervisor.
Sounds good, Jonathan. Thank you. Thanks for doing it. So with that, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the Superior Court submittal of the fiscal year 2021 Fill the Gap grant application in the amount of $3,843.75 to the Administrative Office of the Court.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate it. 2B, discussion action to instruct staff to move forward with public financing based on the timeline presented to fully fund the unfunded liability of the benefit retirement plans, PSPRS, CORP detention, and CORP dispatch. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members, supervisors. We've had several work sessions, and we've had a lot of discussion around our unfunded liability. And so we've asked Mark Reeder back today. He and his team of folks, including Mike Townsend from PSPRS, have worked really hard to prepare this presentation to give you an illustration of what we can do as a method to get this unfunded liability taken care of, paid for, and all the cost savings that go along with it. So I'd like to turn the presentation over to Mark Reeder.
You bet, Mary.
Good morning. Thank you. Mary, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Hello again.
Good morning, Mark. Good to see you.
It's good to be here. I think this is my second meeting since
If you
COVID.
want to take that off, make it a little easier for the...
Thank you.
There you
Mr. Chairman,
go.
members of the board, it's good to be here. I think this is my second meeting outside the office, so I'm blessed to be able to come up and chat with you about your favorite subject, pensions. Want to compliment the board on several meetings you've had, your thoughtfulness, being very measured with regard to your decisions. We know, and I've worked with you long enough, that when you issue debt, you take it seriously. And you want to always do the right thing. So this is my second time in front of you. I know you've had several presentations. Some of this will be a repeat. Just bear with me. I'm going to go through it rather quickly since a lot of it is repeat. Okay. So let's go to slide 1 here. This is a new slide we put together to help you out. If you go down to the bottom, your unfunded pension debt, if you will, because it is a debt, as you know, as indicated in number 2 below. So we wanted to break it out here for you, give you a reminder. On the sheriff's side, about 12. I'm going to round if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. About 12.6 million unfunded, 39% funded. You're accruing 7.3% essentially interest rate to PSPRS on your unfunded liability each year. Okay. On the sheriff's side, the amortization that you entered into with PSPRS about 19 years, so it goes out to 39, as you remember. Number 2 on the right-hand side, I'm going to share a graph here with you and I know you've seen this before. You have escalating annual payments to PSPRS on sheriff, ranging from $860 going up to $2.7 million there. Okay, so that is a pretty big escalation going forward. Now, on the corrections officer retirement plan, there's detention and there's dispatch. There are smaller amounts. Detention, you're $2.1 million unfunded. You're doing better there at 71.4%. That actually goes out 36 years on your amortization. Most of it, I think, is around 30 out to 37 with some dribs and drabs. Those payments are going to go from 124.3 to about 438, according to the actuarial reports from PSPRS. And then dispatch is a smaller amount, about 875, 60% funded, accruing at 730. 23-year amortization on the right-hand side, escalating from 40 to about 169, as you can see there. So down below, just as a reminder, PSPRS liabilities are not pooled like ASRS, right? So each one of these funds have their own assets, as you guys know. And so they're on their own and funded on their own, unlike ASRS, which is a pooled program where we can't do what we're going to propose to do here, as you know. And then number two, a more appropriate term for the unfunded liabilities is debt. It is owed, as you know, and as Mike Townsend has shared with you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if I might have for a moment. Can you go back to the previous slide? As we were looking at this, we looked at the PSPRS, and that's what's generally that we've looked at as a Board of Supervisors and have considered. My question to Mark had been, what about the other PSPRS retirement plans that they administer for us? And what is the status of each of those? So Mark has rolled this in and given us a status of what the 3 retirement plans that we have with PSPRS. Each one's a different group of people. Each one of them, they're individual plans. As Mark said, they're not lumped together with anybody. That's a Gila County Detention Officer, Correction Officer Retirement Plan, and then the Correction Officer Retirement Plan for dispatchers. That they are distinct, separate plans for Gila County. And just wanted to, kind of late in the game to bring this up, but these are 3 retirement plans that we have, and just wanted to be aware that we do have all of these.
So I'm sure Mark's going to get into it here in a minute, James, but where we're headed is tending to all 3 of them. That's where we're headed.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like that we consider that. It's not necessarily that if we want to go back to just to PSPRS, and that's the biggest one, that's 39% funded, and the biggest amount of money, that we can just focus on that, but we should consider all 3 of them.
Yeah, okay.
Good questions. Thank you. Okay, so let's focus on these 3 plans real quick. And you've seen a lot of this before. This is Sheriff. This is our big one, right? Okay, so this is your UAAL. In Texas, they call that the UAL, I was told the other day. But this is our unfunded actuarial liability. This is our amortization schedule from PSPRS. So you can see here, next year, we're going to go to about 8, I think that was at 839. My eyes are going bad. 860 here. And then as I mentioned earlier, we're going to 2.8 rounded numbers here. So about 3 times where we are now. Okay? And this is the legacy concern that we know that you're concerned about. And interestingly enough, as we've analyzed pensions across the state, and of course you're not the only one. I know countywide in Arizona, it's over $1 billion. I think we shared that slide with you at one point. So what's interesting is we're seeing a lot of this across the state just based on the facts of the PSPRS program over the years, in which there were some mistakes made over the years, as you all know. There was the PBI. There was other things going on that drove up this liability. So we wanted to share the sheriff's future with you. So in other words, if you do nothing at all, then you're going to be facing this over time. So that's the big one at 3.21. This is detention. And detention is going to go again up here, 124 going out to 400, not as large, obviously. So, you still have a 3.2 times increase over the current. And then we did the same thing with dispatchers. And you can see there the same type of a, pretty significant increase in your funding to PSPRS. Okay, so we rolled all this up to make it simple. So if we do a refinancing, if you will, which is what we're talking about, as you know, we rolled all the 3 plans up here on page 5 here, and these are your annual payments that go from 2021 is essentially where we're at right now. But we're going into next 21-22 year. You can see you're about $1,023,000, $1,073,000 going to $3.3 million, or about 3 times essentially at or about where we're at now. So this is the roll up. This is your unfunded, ongoing PSPRS annual payment according to the actuarial calculations that come out each year, and as you know, change each year, right? And you've had surprises in the past on the changes based on investment return, based on cost of living adjustments, life expectancy, all the things that go into these complex mathematical formulas that crank out what your payments will be to PSPRS to chop this hill down. Okay, let me pause there. All good so far? Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that's the factual data, and all of that's accruing, as you know, at 7.3. Yes, Woody, did you have a question?
No, not, I'm going to have, Mark, but
Okay.
I can get through a little ways. But Tommy, do you have any questions for Mark so far? Or comments?
I do not, Mr. Chair, I don't. I just appreciate the information. That's just where I am right now with this.
Tim?
No questions, just it's nice to see charts to be able to better understand.
Go on, Mark.
Well, we appreciate that, Mr. Humphrey, and this is an exercise that we're doing around the state, and we really work hard to educate, big picture educate through charts and what have you. So I think this is good data. Okay, so that's the $12.5 million liability with a 7.3% interest rate, if you will, to PSPRS. And so as you know, we are in a all-time historical low interest rate, I guess, maybe the only positive thing of COVID. I'm not sure that I can think of anything else positive on COVID unless somebody else can. We're all struggling through our economies. The feds have kept rates down. And so I wanted to just share this chart with you. Remember, if we do this transaction, we're going to do a taxable financing, not a tax exempt like we did for you last year. We're not financing infrastructure. Okay, this is the 10-year Treasury. You hear this all the time out there, and it hit that all-time low right there on or around July 23rd of 2020. Now, if you remember, we shared with you the City of Flagstaff case study. Correct me if I shared that case study with. Thank you, Mr. Klein. And Flagstaff was the first one in the state to pursue their pension refinancing at $131 million. And that rate was, a month ago, was 0.55. Okay, so now you can see they've gravitated up a little bit from July 23rd. Not a whole lot. Call it 15 basis points. 100 basis points equals 1%. Not the end of the world. I think there's a little bit of investor fatigue out there when rates get that low. So at any rate, still a very good time to swap your liability from 7.3 down to, if we end up moving forward, we're going to work really hard for you all. You're a AA rated county, remember. The county's done a fantastic job. You're a AA rated county. We think you'll do somewhere around a 17-year amortization, so not super long. And I'm praying and hoping that we can get you in the high 2% money. That would be our goal. Flagstaff was 269, if you remember. AA minus, you're a AA, you're a little shorter, rates have gone up a little bit. We would work really hard for you to drive your cost of borrowing down, what we would hope is in the high 2s.
So did our percentage rate have anything to do with like the money we would put in there too? I mean, weren't we talking like $1 million before to set aside?
Mr. Chairman, yes, typically, like the City of Flagstaff, they borrowed additional money to have a reserve to set aside, so that gives confidence to investors that there's a reserve, that if there's something that happens in the economy to City of Flagstaff, that their bond debt can be paid and used for that. We had spoken about that early on in this process, and I asked Mark, why would we want to bond for any more than we absolutely have to?
Right.
Because we have reserves, and they are still our reserves. They are set aside. We'll put them in an account that is maybe named or specified for this debt service, should we need to use it, but it is still in our name. It's still considered our capital reserve, and doesn't really change the nature of our investment or our reserves much at all. Is that correct?
Yes. And so by doing that, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, and I very well may be, but if you put in $1 million, you can get down to whatever interest rate it is. If you put in $2 million, it could even drop lower.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I would say, so we call it the contingency reserve fund, if you recall. Mm-hmm. Flagstaff did it, if you remember, they put aside $14 million. So they did $131 million, about 10% of their deal, okay? We have a reserve fund for investment misses, because remember, PSPRS is working hard to get us our 730 return, right? So they're working hard. And so we have investment misses. This is in the future. And then we have actuarial misses, actuarial adjustments. Okay, so let's say, for example, that we set aside the amount of which we'll work with you on. We haven't calculated the exact size of the reserve fund. It's based on mathematical formulas of the actuarial historical losses or misses and the actuarial investment misses. So we try to put a lot of thought into it, and we will have this board adopt policies and procedures relative to the size of the reserve fund, measured very carefully with lots of conversation. And then when do we draw from it, and how do we replenish it? I think it's an indication of management recognizes that if we do this transaction, you're going to be 100% funded. That's our goal. Mm-hmm. So like Flagstaff, we wired the money to PSPRS on July 23rd, first week of August. Flagstaff, as you know, is at the moment 100% funded. Mm-hmm. So let's say 2 years from now, we get the Foster and Foster actuarial reports, and it comes to Mary, James, and Marin, and they report to the board that we got a $1.5 million unfunded liability again, hypothetical, just because of what's going on in the world and the actuarial calculations. You could then dip into not the general fund, you dip into your contingency reserve fund, liability management tool, reflection of the board and management, and then wire the 1.5 back to PSPRS and then repay it back over, say, 3 budget years. So I think it's a good liability management tool. The rating agencies appreciate it. To answer your question as best I can, Mr. Klein, in terms of your rate, I wouldn't say that if we didn't have a contingency reserve fund, I'm not sure that we're going to save you a whole lot of interest rate, if you will, but it will be discussed and talked about, and I think generally favorably received and the right thing to do.
Go ahead, James.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I think that when they look at it, as Mark said, going through a very detailed analysis, that it is perhaps more a confidence builder for investors, that they're more willing to invest in Gila County by having that reserve. It may impact the interest rate on the bonds somewhat, but there becomes where that confidence is given by that reserve, but then there's a diminishing rate of return that we get to the point where we can have pretty much maximum confidence from investors. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it doesn't really contribute much. So it's finding that key number in between there. Mark said that for City of Flagstaff, it was 10%. That may be very well what it is. If we do 15 million a year, that would be 1.5 million in a reserve. That may, somewhere around there would be the expected tipping point of maximum benefit.
So go ahead, Mark. I'll have more questions for you
Okay.
as we go, I'm sure. Thank you.
No, the good questions. And remember, and like Mr. Menlove said, it's your asset. You're blessed to have a good cushion, and we know you've worked hard on that. It's your asset.
Well, and I appreciate that, and it's our constituents' asset.
Yes.
Of Gila County.
Yes,
and
sir.
so that's what I've been focused on this now. This is our 3rd meeting or so on this deal. And the one thing that still doesn't set real well with me is the financial misses, and that's out of our hands.
Yes.
I get that, so, and there's no way we're going to fix that. I hope Townsend or somebody else does, but that's out of our hands, but it's not a real comforting feeling anyway. So
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. Go ahead.
Okay, very good. No problem. That's why we do these sessions here. And you're asking, okay, so then we put in some policies here, policy objectives for the county. Number one, we're analyzing your largest debt, if you will, and growing debt profile. The liabilities accruing. We talked about that at 7:30, resulting in negative amortization. That's why we're seeing these things continue to grow, right, on a pretty large unfunded. at paying 730. You throw money at it, but it just continues to, it doesn't never catch up. Number three, and that's what we're doing now, reviewing alternatives to address the liability, including a refunding. If we can get the high 2%, low 3% money, we're looking at about $9 million of savings, pretty significant. And we're going to address the required constitutionally protected growing legacy annual payments, probably through a level debt structure. I'm going to show you that in a moment, which we know from a policy standpoint is really important to Gila County, and we know in the case of Flagstaff it certainly was. Can we shorten it? We think we can maybe shorten it a little bit. That's always good news, right? Get this long-term liability off our books, get it off our balance sheet in the next 15 years or so, level debt, possibly shorten it, and then the bullet point down below, the second one, is the long-term liability management tool through the establishment of this contingency reserve fund, county asset, based on the actuarial and investment implications in the future. Fund legacy Tier 1 and Tier 2 100% funded at closing. So this is all Tier 1 and Tier 2, as you know. Now we're in Tier 3, so a lot of this problem will be behind us. It's just how we deal with this, accelerating unfunded liability at about $15 million plus for your county. So those are some policy objectives that we put down for you. Okay, so here's what we're thinking right now, roughly, that we'd probably issue about $15 million in bonds, right? New bonds, and we're probably going to put, we're going to put most of it to PSP. That gets wired to PSPRS, right? And we got 312 money here, and again, we're going to try to get that down lower for you. Let's go with it for now, and we get about $9 million of savings. And remember, we did a refunding last year. We saved you $700,000 of savings in today's dollars, so that was a good thing there too. All righty? Okay, so here's our PSPRS. That was charted off that combined, remember that? So see how it's going up here? This is what we're worried about. And then this is our percentage of payroll here, which because of Tier 3 is going to start to go down. So let's go on to the next slide here. And I'm just going to kind of go to the numbers here a little bit. This is what we looked at before, if you remember. This is the roll-up of the three plans, right? So we're about $1 million now, $1.1 million, and then we're going to 3.3. That's the 3 times differential we charted earlier, if you remember. Okay? We do, one of the advantages of doing one of these pension financings is we can start all over. We would start all over, and we get you about $1 million. And James and Mary helped us with this, and Marin, and we can certainly tweak this a little bit. We do have some savings right here, which we might want to, if you don't need that savings, then we'll pay your debt off a little earlier, Mr. Menlove, if you remember. Okay, so we don't need in 2021, we've got some savings in here, but we can fix that. And at any rate, we're going to go about $1.05 million. Make sense? Here's our savings. Pretty nice. We'll take it. We're chopping the hill down here. We're giving you some savings here, and we're going to pay it off a tad bit early. These are onesie-twosies. I'm not too worried about that. Neither are you. Give you a little savings. So how do you like that? Do you see the structure there, Mr. Chairman, members of the board? Let me just pause there for a moment. I wanted to show you those numbers.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so Mark, this is all 3 of them rolled into one package.
is
This would
right
be
here.
the overall payment we would be paying every year for all of them.
Yes, sir.
And so the savings on top, that's going to be created by what now?
This right here?
Yes.
Well, that, and I forgot, James and Mary, if we what we did on that, whether you guys wanted the savings there or not. That would be for this budget year. If you don't, what we would do is just put more principal in our new bond issue, and we'd make that the same. You with me? Mm-hmm. If you want it, we can get you $640 this year, give or take. Your budget's, with COVID and state shared revenues, if you wanted some more savings up front, and we have a couple clients that want this. I don't know that Gila County does, but we have a couple clients who have said, we want our cake and eat it too. We want to put some savings over the next couple years to get through COVID. So that's, as you can see, we don't have any savings in 21, 22. 2021,
Right.
you know, we have a little bit of savings, and then we just level it out. We're focused on this right here to get to this. This is cash flow savings to your county, $13 million. The $9 million is the present value calculation that we've been through together, right? Okay, so this is budget. This is pure budget cash flow savings. I like it. I like this versus this, okay?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
So I do have a question on, we're just beginning the fiscal year. We're September 1st.
Yep.
And we've got 10 more months of this fiscal year. Our PSPR rates, corp rates are set for the year. We do this, it all rolls through within the next 2 months. And it's funded. Does PSPRS lower our contribution rate for this fiscal year? Or do we have to wait until it's recalculated in coming into our next fiscal year?
You know, we need to check with Mike on that, James. I don't really know exactly how we'll true up this year. We're going to have to reconcile as it relates to this year.
Right, because if we have to continue at our,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, continue at our 50% contribution rate that we're having now, or
Yeah.
whatever it is,
So we can
that first year number may depend on how we, our contribution rate is impacted.
That's right. We'll true that up. We'll true all that up. Does that make sense on that? So, and then the right-hand side, just the chart, because we like charts, as you know. The blue line is your level debt. Your green line is your savings. And your red line is your if you do nothing at all scenario with PSPRS. So this chops, the term we used in Flagstaff, as you know, which I kind of like, we chop the hill down for budget stability for many, many years to come, and give you some, you know, nothing significant. We're going to get a couple hundred thousand a year in 25, but you can see right here that we'll give you a little bit of savings. So hope that's helpful.
It is.
Okay.
Mark, it is. So the question on the savings is going to come down the road. I mean, from a county standpoint, James, to me, it seems like it'd be, in my opinion only, and Tim and Tommy can say what theirs are, but it seems to me like that savings could be put right back into this and knock it down even a little bit further. But from a major standpoint in the county and where we are now and what you see coming, what do you think?
Mr. Chairman, I think that a lot of, as Mark said, that there are entities that are looking for that first year savings. I would assume that's probably due to COVID-19 and that there is uncertainty on our revenues. And so just as another tool in our toolbox, in our tool belt, to be able to manage through this time when there's uncertain revenues, expenses for COVID are very high, and just the uncertainty in general is why I would say that. I've structured it from the beginning that we are not paying any more than we have on the actuarially determined debt payment, but then build the savings in as we go. And so I don't. It depends on when our contribution rate recalculates as to what that number would be. I don't necessarily think that I would. Well, I'm not sure if I would want to have the savings for fiscal year 21 or not.
Apparently, we have a little bit of time to think about it.
Yeah.
So, Tommy, do you have some questions or comments to this point?
Mr. Chair, so far, I like the strategy that we're looking at here. To be able to do this way, I wouldn't have been on that just a little while ago. That we could have gotten through this particular debt and debt scenario this way. And Mark, I just appreciate the work you're doing on this, and Mary, you too. I'm just soaking up the information, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Tommy. Tim?
Oh, yeah, I just thank goodness for the interest rates being low, that we were able to put something together to see some daylight at the end of the tunnel for all of this, instead of that mountain to keep growing, a way for us to be able to reach in and actually see an end to it, providing everything goes as planned. So I'm just happy to see the interest rates and perhaps a daylight on this to get it behind us instead of constantly in front of us and growing.
Thanks, Tim. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, thank you. Good questions. And we can true all this up and reconcile those numbers. This is the reserve fund contingency. We talked about that. You can read this a little bit later. And again, we will start working on this policy immediately, because it's going to take us several weeks to get in the room with Mr. Menlove and Ms. Springer and Marin to size up this contingency reserve fund, which sounds like you all want, which I think is a good idea. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about this. We did a refunding last year, if you remember, so a lot of this is familiar to you. This is kind of our debt schedule, conceptually. The second column is the pledged revenues. So remember, to get our AA rating, very common in Arizona, just about all the counties do it, except the two larger ones. We're going to pledge your state shared revenues, net of all tax and access, if you remember. And we're going to pledge your local, and we're going to pledge our VLTs, and we're going to pledge our PILT. So those are all good county revenues, right? So for 1920, about 11.7. For 2021, we know that's budgeted less than that, because we think we're going to have a state shared revenue, if you will, drop. And we'll get this number to you at our next meeting. So about 11.7 there, and this is the transaction we worked on together last year, if you remember. This was a nice deal for the county. And then this is our pension financing, and these numbers match the previous page, if you remember. Remember, we're going to go level debt on that, okay? I don't know how we got so close here. I guess that's just ironic more than anything else, okay? So this would be your new pension debt versus your accelerated trajectory debt at the level debt. We'll figure out what we're going to do here. And so at the end of the day, if we move forward, you can have about $2.1 million total debt of the county. Your public infrastructure bonds, this plus this gets us about $2.1 million. And for every dollar of debt, you got about $5.58 of revenue. So pretty strong from an investor perspective, and your liquidity and your contingency funds and things of that nature. So we wanted to kind of give you an overview of where we see things going on this front. Questions before I go on to the next slide?
Tommy, do you have any questions for Mark?
I do not, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Tommy. Tim?
I do not.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Since, you deal with this day in and day out.
Yes.
So where do you see our economy going, Mark? Is it going to get tougher, or is it going to start lighting up on us?
Everybody's working their way through COVID. The stock market's doing very, very well, as you know. I think the Fed, they've already come out and said they're going to keep interest rates low as long as they can. I think these low interest rates has helped fueling some of the economic recovery we have going, obviously, right? So that's a good sign. As far as where the economy goes from here, I think it's going to be a slower recovery over the next couple of years as we come out of COVID, as we get the vaccine, before we turn the economy on full blast, if you will. And so I think it's just going to be kind of maybe a muted recovery at a modest growth rate over the next couple of years. And then I think once we get a vaccine and people get more comfortable and we start to work through that, then we'll get some more momentum in the economy. That's how I'm kind of seeing things around the state. It's been pretty interesting. The local sales tax revenues around the state are off the charts in many, many cities and towns. And we're blessed by that. And that's really the changing consumer behavior where people are traveling in state instead of obviously leaving the state, hopping on airplanes. So the COVID-19 in Arizona has been somewhat muted by the local sales tax revenue increases and obviously the big Walmarts and the big stores and all that. And the spending that's gone on. So that's really been a blessing, and we're hoping that that's going to be the case with Gila County as well, which I think generally is the case. We know the state shared revenues may take a hit.
Thank you, Mark.
So hope that's helpful. I just have one more slide, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman. We'll wrap this thing up. So basically, I think what staff is asking for today, and Mr. Menlove and Mary can help me, is direction from the board. If you want to move forward, because you generally like what you see here, and we want to obviously take advantage, I think, of these low interest rates and move expeditiously, we put together a calendar here with your approval today would essentially get us going on a financing in which on September 22nd, which I guess is 3 weeks, we would have our public hearing, which, as you know, is required. We did this last year. And then parallel track the financing documents, the rating agency presentations, the investor presentations with staff. And here we have PSPRS true-up reconciliations along the lines, Mr. Menlove, what you were just talking about. So we'll be in touch with Mike, who's been fantastic, as you know, on that. The board will then adopt a bond resolution in October, and we'd be in a position to market the bonds really right before the election and close shortly thereafter. So I think what staff was requesting from the board today is your direction, and if so, we would probably move along the lines of something similar in this calendar. So with that concludes my presentation. Hope that
Thank
was
you,
helpful.
Mark.
Thank you.
Good presentation.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it. So, where are we at with all this, Mary?
Well, Mr. Chairman, members, supervisors, as my budget manager back in the corner would say, when we're planning the budget every year, it would really be nice to be able to have a rock solid number that we know that is not going to escalate, and we're going to have to try and figure out how to fund the escalation every year. So having something that's dependable and that we can count on, and the fact that we're going to make money at 7.3% as opposed to paying it in interest fees, to me, it makes sense to do it. So that's our request to the board today, is to ask you to approve us to move forward. And if James has any other comments.
Do you have any comments, James?
I do, Mr. Chairman. We had a discussion at the county managers meeting that happened a couple weeks ago, and a large part of it was spend a lot of time on PSPRS and what they're doing there. I had one of their board of trustees come and speak to the county managers and of the things that they're doing. There were a few things that were brought up that were concerns to some managers, and I wanted to share those with you so that you, to make sure that we have all the information, can make a sound, solid, for you to make a sound and solid decision for us. One of those is that the interest rate, that they may not reach their 7.3%, which means that our annual contribution would increase. So right now we're, 56% or something on our contribution rate, and this would go down to 15% by taking care of this, and would more than cover by the amount that we're saving on our contributions to PSPRS would be a bond payment instead. So that is equivalent, at least to start with. But then if there is, as Mark said, some give on the 7.3, they don't reach that 7.3, becomes a portion of that becomes unfunded, even though we've funded it in its entirely. The contribution rate would be adjusted, but then it would be adjusted anyway, regardless. So there's that. It's, I guess it is a concern, but to say that we do this and then the portfolio doesn't perform as well as we hope it will, that it's going to increase our rates. It's going to increase our rates regardless, because the performance of the portfolio is whether we do this or not. It's not going to matter. So I don't, in that, as far as interest, investment income, exposure, that's there regardless. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. You're not helping my feelings much, but it does make sense.
Okay.
So go ahead, James. You got some more?
The other one was that, I don't want you to, well, the other one was that I guess most plans, as you look at these, full funding is considered about 80%, because that gives you close enough, because it is, after all actuarially determined rates. And even as an accountant, I have no interest in touching what actuaries do. It is a weird science, and how they calculate all the numbers and all the different factors they put into. They miss one factor or put a different factor in there than they need to, which they have been doing previously, which is why our debt has continued to increase, even though we're making very large payments on it. Our unfunded actuarially determined liability has continued to increase because of factors that they missed, the actuaries missed in their calculations. They have really looked at those actuary factors in determining what the rates are, and have been getting them to what is more true, was more factual for counties and for governments in Arizona. So the rate has been increasing that we contribute because of those factors and building things in. So there's a lot of different things that are unknowns here because it's an actuarially determined amount. So the 80% is considered fully funded. Do we want to go so that we're fully 100% funded? I would recommend so. The one of the concerns or fears was that, okay, if a bunch of us go through and get our PSPRS retirement plans fully funded or 100% funded, do the police and fire unions go back to PSPRS and start saying they need additional benefits to improve their benefits, increase their benefits of what they have, so it becomes once again an unsustainable retirement plan? That's what happened before, is that certain things, as the plans were doing really well, they were over 100% funded. And so they kept going back to the legislature and saying, well, let's do this benefit, because, well, we've got all this money, so let's just do this benefit. And it came to the point when the stock market lost, there were so many things built into the plan, it was impossible to recover just by letting things go as they are. So is there a risk that the police and fire unions, or those that represent those individuals, can go in and ask for increased benefits if we are funded? It's a possibility, and it would be something that would be up to the legislature, that we would have to try to remind them. So we need to consider that by funding this is a perception that the debt is gone. We're funded, so times are good, times are beautiful, and we can go out and start awarding all kinds of new benefits. I think that is probably, of all things, the highest risk to me. because the other ones are going to be risks no matter what we do here. And they're pretty much going to be equivalent no matter what we do, other than that we get a level payment and save millions of dollars. But I know that there are enough entities that are not going to be doing this because they just are, they just are not. And I've been told that by several of the managers and local governments, municipalities, that they're not going to be able to, whether they don't have the wherewithal to be able to do this or not, but they are not going to do it. So there's going to be a bunch of plans out there that are still 39% funded or less, or 40%, 50%. So to go and take that when there's a bunch of plans, they're going to be way underfunded to think that they're going to go in and be able to gain any traction of saying, everything's great. I don't think it's going to happen, would be a feasible thing for those groups for many years to come, for a couple of decades. I'm making it even worse.
You're not helping that warm, fuzzy feeling, James.
And I know that, but personally, I think it's a good thing to do with interest rates down there 3% or less. Looking forward, it's not going to help us too much for the next 4 or 5 years. We'll have a little bit of savings, but not much. But for the long-term benefit of the county, looking forward, that this board is looking for the long-term, what is best for Gila County and the citizens and taxpayers of, I would say that is it going to come to the point when we have a $3 million debt service payment in 1 year instead of $1 million? Are we going to have to raise taxes? Or how are we going to have the resources to be able to pay that $3 million debt service payment that we don't have now? And there's a lot of uncertainty with that, the size and scope of those payments in the coming years in 2030, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, that because of that uncertainty 10 years from now, it's that scares me more than anything else. And being able to help ensure the financial stability of Gila County going into the future. There is one thing also that the Auditor General's Office and the Attorney General's Office have determined that, well, I think the Attorney General's Office had something to do with it, but this debt, it is truly debt, is not an exclusion for the annual expenditure limitation report. And that's an amount of, that is the ELR is a limitation on how much taxes increase, how much local government can increase spending in a given year. So there are certain things that are excludable, and one of those is debt that is excludable, so it reduces the amount that we're liable to. Now, if we exceed what there's an Economic Estimates Commission at Department of Revenue, they determine based on 2% growth in population, looking back to 1979, 1980, and they give us an amount of our expenditure limit for the year, for that applicable year. So right now, all this debt we're paying, it's $800,000, so we're able to manage it, not having it as exclusion, but we get $3 million, and that is just an expense off the top that we can't exclude. We may be in trouble of being able to fit our expenses under the expenditure limit, not by any fault of you as a board or any fault of staff. It's something that was built into PSPRS and those plans, that in the future years we could exceed the expenditure limit, and by exceeding the expenditure limit, it depends on how far you exceed it. If you exceed it by 1%, then there's a dollar for dollar penalty that we have to pay back to the state, to the taxpayers, for exceeding the expenditure limit. If it gets up to, 5% or something like that, then you have to pay 3 times. So for every dollar you exceed the expenditure limit, you have to pay $3 back. and reduce expenditures by $3. And this, then if it goes up by like 10% over, then it's like 5%. So we could, an entity can, by exceeding their expenditure limit, have to pay a penalty of $5 for every $1 they exceed the expenditure limit. So that is not forefront on my mind, but it is a consideration that, because for whatever reason, the Auditor General and Attorney General's office don't consider this to be debt, even though it is truly debt. And maybe because it's an actuarially determined amount or something like that, that they have not been able to, that they don't say that it is debt as far as the Auditor General is concerned. But by doing this, it is a true debt, and that we're making that payment. So all of that, the payment amounts are excludable on our expenditure limitation calculation. I think that's it for now, Mr. Chairman.
It's a lot to think about, James.
Yes, it is.
Tommy, do you have any comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to piggyback just a minute on Jane. It is true debt, and it's always felt to me, the part that's always got my goat, it's not a debt that we generated necessarily. We've had very little to do with having this debt. However, what Mark and Mary are presenting today seems to be the first time it doesn't feel like we're just simply in a crapshoot, that there really is, it's not guaranteed, but there really is a way to work out of it and to come out ahead, not behind. And what I have no faith in, though, is that the legislature won't turn around and do this very same thing to us in another way. I don't even know exactly what I mean by that, but I just hope everybody has learned from this and won't let it happen again. But that's mine, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tommy. Tim?
Well, it won't happen again. We don't get a retirement. We're too busy trying to fix everybody else's, so I don't see it happening again. But yeah, no, I have no comment. It's our only opportunity to do something. Is there risks? There's risks and everything. But at least we can see daylight at the end of the tunnel through this, and before interest rates were high and things like that. And there was no daylight, just burden. And so I have no comment. I appreciate staff and everybody that's worked to help us try to see a means to an end for the PRS, the Corp detention, and the Corp dispatch.
Thank you, Tim. So everybody tells me Mike Townsend's a good guy. He's the one to be in charge of all this and make a go of it. And I guess it's even more important today when people are looking at an election and you're talking about legislatures and you're looking about a lot of people that control this. It's out of our hands, and I think we're sitting here on the board here today trying to do the right thing when somebody else further up the chain can change that. And that's the scary part to me. There's only so much that our people can absorb or pay. So, the task in front of us today is to try and do what we think is right and go on with it. When you're looking at 15 years, 17 years, that's a long time. That's a lot of turnovers. And what's in front of us today is what we can see right now, and that's what we need to tend to. So I do want to thank you, Mark, for coming today and presenting all this, and Mary, you and Marin and all the ladies jumping in there. And you got one more, James?
I do. Mr. Chairman, I do have one more comment. If you look at this calendar here, what we're doing today is giving us permission for staff to pursue this. We do have on the next 2 weeks, September 4th, and the next couple of weeks, we do have that we're having a public hearing. The public hearing will be
September 22nd.
September 22nd. So we post in the newspaper. We're going to get comments from the public, have that input, hopefully that we can have some interaction. So that is a public hearing to have, again, further discuss this, bring anything else out that we want to have known. And then that was on the 22nd. Then on the October 20th, the Board of Supervisors considers a resolution authorizing the county manager finance director to effectuate the transaction, assuming the emergency clause adoption. So this is it's not until October 20th that that the board makes the decision to go into this debt. So there's still a process here, a lot of things that this puts the wheels in motion for all these things that are on this calendar to get them rolling. I will comment that we've condensed this and made it very quick. And the purpose for that is to have this done before November 1st. Because of that, there's some unknowns there in November. That may change the financial picture, may change the interest rates and those kinds of things. A lot of unknowns after 1st of November.
Totally understand, and the interest rates are key right now. When you have that many zeros lined up, the interest rates are everything. So, yeah. Okay, well, if we're good, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to instruct staff to move forward with public financing based on the timeline presented to fully fund the unfunded liability of the benefit retirement plans, PSPRS, CORP detention, and CORP dispatch.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you coming today. Okay, moving on to 2C, information, discussion, action to renew the Caterpillar financial contract for a used 621G auger scraper, serial number DBB00293, and make a payment in October 2020 for $102,029.46. Steve, good morning, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the board. Last year, county purchased a scraper, a lease purchase agreement. Arizona Revised Statute 11651 says counties can enter into multiple year lease purchase agreements. However, every year the agreement needs to be back before the board for approval. You cannot approve for longer than one fiscal year at a time. That's what we're doing here, is back before you for a payment. And there's a mistake in the history up there. It says first payment was made in October 2015. It was actually October 2019. Just want to point that out. But this is just to renew the lease for one more fiscal year to make this year's payment.
Okay, Steve, thanks. Tommy, any questions?
No, Mr. Chair.
Tim?
How many more payments, Steve?
3 more after this.
Okay.
I don't have any questions either, so I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we do renew the Caterpillar financial contract for a used 621G auger scraper, serial number DBB00293, and make a payment in October 2020 for $102,029.46.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Steve, thanks.
Thank you.
2D, information, discussion, action to accept or reject a citizen's petition to begin the process to establish a portion of Pine Creek Canyon Road from Oak Road to Hummingbird as a primitive road in Pine, Arizona. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Pine Creek Canyon Road is a county road up to Oak Road, and then we have no easements. It's all in and out of private property. We had a plan to continue this all the way to the end of the road where there happens to be a rather large church camp that hosts a lot of summer youth. The residents along the road, our minimum standards for a roadway are 50 foot for this type of a road. Residents were not interested in giving up that much of their property for a road. They did offer the option of wanting the county to come in and maintain the road. This road will fit the primitive road guidelines. The citizens approached the county with a petition, have that petition before you. It's either to accept it or reject it. Should you accept it, we'll start the process to bring a portion of the remaining road in as a primitive road.
Thanks, Steve. Tommy, any comments?
No, Mr. Chair.
Tim?
No comment.
Sounds good, Steve. With that, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the citizens' petition to begin the process to establish a portion of Pine Creek Canyon Road from Oak Road to Hummingbird as a primitive road in Pine, Arizona.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thanks,
Thank you.
Steve. 2E, information, discussion, action to approve amendment number 3 to an intergovernmental agreement, contract number CTR 04321 between the Gila County Health and Emergency Management Department and the Arizona Department of Health Services in the amount of $139,695 to renovate the Payson Wick Health Building. Michael? Good morning, Michael.
Great. Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. So this is really good news, and I give credit for this to my Deputy Director, Paula Horn, who reminded me about 4 years ago, we applied for a construction grant through WIC and were denied. And when we were told we were going to be moving from our office up in Payson to the new Napa building, Paula reminded me that this might be available to us. So she reached out to the state WIC, who reached out to the federal WIC program, and lo and behold, we received $140,000 to cover the costs, a lot of the costs of the remodeling of the Napa building. So this is super good news, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Michael. Tommy?
Mr. Chair, Michael, how will this affect the long-term plans of taking that building down and having a whole different building standing there?
I believe, Supervisor Martin, that our old building, once we move into the Napa building, will be demolished. And that's going to be clearing the way for the new Payson government complex up there. So this will have no effect on that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Michael.
You bet, Tommy. Tim?
I just think it's great when money's tight and we're trying to get so much done and trying to help all departments in one ball of wax and move forward. Hats off to people just reaching over and beyond to pick up these grants and do things like this. It helps when everybody's doing more than their job to help and bring these kind of funds to the table. So I'm grateful.
Thanks, Tim. Michael, thank you, and make sure and thank Paula. This is a good deal. So, do you have something to say, James?
I do. I'm just going to remind Michael that we're looking forward to a ribbon cutting or some sort of event that we can introduce that brand new health building to provide services to the northern part of the county. Some sort of event that we can celebrate this awesome progress that we've made.
Thank you, James. Yep, we are planning that, and we'll get on it a little bit quicker once we get through our animal shelter groundbreaking ceremony this afternoon.
Sounds good, Michael. Well, tell Paula thank you.
I will, thank you.
Well, with that, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve amendment number 3 to an intergovernmental agreement, contract number CTR 043241 with the Arizona Department of Health Services.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
You did have comment off of YouTube on the previous agenda item.
Oh, we did? Okay. Do you want to go?
Positive comment.
Well, that always helps too, so.
Well, then by all means, can we hear it?
You want to come up here, Dave, with it, or can you? Thank you, Michael.
Okay, it was a comment from a Greg Zimmerman. Dear Gila County Board of Supervisors and members, on behalf of the neighbors along Pine Creek Canyon Road, Spruce Drive, and Hummingbird Drive, the neighbors are requesting the road be designated as a primitive road in an effort to bring some much-needed maintenance. Hang on a minute.
Contract number CCR043241 with the Arizona Department of Health Services.
Here we go. Let's see. To bring some much-needed maintenance services to these roads while still preserving the natural country. Compelling reasons for the petition. Current property owners as well as new owners are revitalizing their homes and cabins, and well-maintained road enhances property values. Nearly 3 to 4 times a year, the roads are washed out from local stormwater runoff within the area and from the Portals development. During heavy snow, there currently is no plowing service on these roads. 2 winters ago, the residents were stuck in their homes without power and cell phone service for 10 days. Thank you, Board of Supervisors. And again, that was from Greg Zimmerman.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Greg, if you're still listening. Good job, Steve. Okay, Michael, we'll go on the next one. 2F. Information, discussion, action to approve contract number ADHS18-175354, amendment number 1, APP amendment number 1 in the amount of $46,172 to continue Smoke-Free Arizona Act services for the residents and businesses of Gila County. Michael?
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board again. So this is our annual amount of money we receive from the state tobacco taxes to investigate tobacco complaints or clean air complaints in Gila County. The $46,000 is given to our environmental health department, and this pays for about 60% of one of my 2 full-time employees' salaries. So it's a good chunk of money. And that's what they do, is we provide education to businesses about smoke-free Arizona and investigate any complaints.
Good. Thank you, Michael. Tommy, any comments?
No, Mr. Chair.
Tim?
I have none.
Good job, Michael. With that, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve contract number ADHS 18-175354, amendment number 1-APR- amendment number 1 with the Arizona Department of Health Services.
And Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Michael. 2G, information, discussion, action to review all bids submitted for request for proposals number 050420, pharmacy services for Gila County Detention Medical. Award to the lowest, most responsive, responsible, and qualified bidder, and authorize the chairman's signature on the awarded contract for the winning bid. We have Mary Springer and Sarah White. Good morning, Sarah. I don't know which one of you's up first.
Mary will take it, and I'll ask if you have any questions specifically for the detention office, I can answer them.
Thanks, Sarah.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman, members, supervisors. Yeah, Sarah and I are tag teaming, so you've got the whole county covered, base and globe. In June, we went out for bid for pharmacy services for the detention unit, and 2 responsible bidders submitted their bids, Westwood Pharmacy and Diamond Pharmacy. In a head-to-head competition, Westwood showed a greater savings than Diamond, and also Westwood did not include a fee for restocking of unused prescriptions, where Diamond did. So overall, the better value for Gila County for pharmacy services for detention is Westwood. So we're asking the board to go ahead and award the contract to them today.
Thank you, Mary. Tommy, any comments or questions?
No, Mr. Chair.
Tim?
Oh, just a comment that I'm happy that we keep putting these things up for bid and giving other businesses an opportunity to be competitive and to help, Gila County, as we just did with these people not charging restocking fees and things. So I just think it's great that we keep putting these things up for different bids for different services.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, thanks, Mary. And thank you, Sarah, for getting this done. This is good. So with that, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to award a contract to Westwood Pharmacy for work to be provided as outlined in request for proposals number 050420, pharmacy services for Gila County Detention Medical.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
2H, information discussion action to adopt resolution number 20-09-01, authorizing the Gila County Community Services Department Housing Services to submit an application to the Arizona Department of Housing for Home Investment Partnership Program funds and State Housing Fund, SHF, funds in the amount of $285,000 to be utilized for housing rehabilitation for fiscal year 2020 through 2021. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning, Chairman Klein and members of the board. Thank you for hearing this request this morning. This home application will be for 5 units. They will be leveraged with other dollars, of course, and some of this application will is some of the other funding, that I have is leveraged that will give us extra points for this application. So it says 4, but it should be 5.
Okay.
Sorry about
Misprint
that.
on there, so we're looking
Yeah.
at 5 units.
5 units.
Instead of 4. Good.
And perhaps more. The units, it depends on what we get into when we open up a wall or something like that. So sometimes I have to bring extra leverage dollars in. Every house can be a puzzle. So I kind of budget for an amount, but sometimes I have to bring some extra money in to complete it.
Okay. Tommy, any comments or questions?
No, just Melissa, I appreciate you and your bunch for continuing to find money for these things. Thank you.
Tim?
Yeah, thank you for caring, Melissa, very much.
Good job, Melissa. So hopefully it goes well and we get at least 5 of them done.
Mm-hmm.
So that I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt resolution number 20-09-01.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thanks again, Melissa.
Thank you.
2I, information discussion action to approve a 3-year contract between CenturyLink and Gila County to provide upgraded phone bandwidth and an increase in the maximum number of concurrent calls in the amount of $103,589.48 to be paid over 36 monthly installments. Kelly Riggs. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and member supervisors. We currently have existing phone service through CenturyLink. We've had it for a number of years. I believe they've always been our provider. They are a state contract holder. We're running up against some limitations basically with bandwidth for the phone system. So we're looking to take advantage of increasing the bandwidth to be able to allow us to make more concurrent phone calls in and out of the county before we get flooded with random phone issues when we have them. Sometimes calls drop or it feels like calls are underwater, those kind of issues. The overall cost is $103,000 over 3 years. But the actual increase to the county would be just under $1,000 per month, or about $35,000 over the contract, over the current rates that we're paying. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, Kelly. Tommy, any comments or questions?
Oh, Mr. Chair, I won't get on my bandwagon about bandwidth, but I hope the day comes when we're paying ourselves for this service that we're providing in effect. Other than that, Kelly, just thank you for keeping us upgraded.
Tim?
No comment.
So, thank you, Kelly. If this is something we need, is CenturyLink working pretty well with us?
They do what they can. They're limited in rural areas. It did take a number of conversations to get them to find a better solution for us than what we have currently. So I can't complain. They did step up and come up with a new solution for us, where in the past they had been less than willing to really look at opportunities that we needed to continue to grow and provide the services that we need for the county offices. I know it's frustrating for county employees as well as constituents when they call and either can't get through or have phone problems.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Kelly. I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the use of a cooperative purchasing agreement between the state of Arizona and CenturyLink, state contract agreement number CTRO 49872, in the amount of $103,589.48 to be paid over 36 monthly installments through September 30, 2023.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Okay, 2J, information, discussion, action to approve revised Exhibit A to resolution number 20-08-01, which contains the correct tax levy and rate for school equalization. Mary?
I'm back again. Good morning again. We adopted the tax rates, or you adopted the tax rates on August 17th. And immediately after, we found that the school equalization rate was incorrect. And that is on Exhibit A. So we're coming back to you today to correct that. The rate that we had on the old Exhibit A was 0.4566. It should have been 0.4426. So we're asking the supervisors to approve that change.
Thank you, Mary. Any comments, Tommy?
No, Mr. Chair.
Tim?
No comments, Mr. Chair.
Neither do I. So I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve revised Exhibit A to resolution number 20-08-01.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Are you
Have a
done
great
now?
day. Marion, am I done? Yes, I am.
Thank you, Mary. 2K, information, discussion, action to consider a sealed bill for the bid for the purchase of assessor's tax parcel numbers 206-12-016, 206-12-017, and 206-12-108, and if accepted, authorize the chairman's signature on the quitclaim deeds. Marion Shepherd.
Thank you, Chairman Klein and board members. These 3 parcels are actually used as a yard, a side yard and a backyard for property that is owned by Michael Lopez, and he lives at 262 South Latham Boulevard in Miami. He submitted a sealed bid to purchase each of the 3 properties, and if he is successful and the board approves, he would like to go to the assessor and try to get these combined so he gets 1 tax bill a year, and it makes sense to me.
Okay.
I open the sealed
Yeah,
bid.
you bet, Marion.
Thank you. I have a sealed bid from Michael Lopez for the purchase of parcel 206-12-016 in the amount of $400. 206-12-017 in the amount of $150, and 206-12-018 in the amount of $150.
Okay, thank you, Marion.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I didn't hear the last 2. I heard the 400, but what were the other 2?
Okay, it was 150 and 150.
All righty, thank you.
And with that, Tommy, you have any comments or questions?
I don't, Mr. Chair. I just, as we all do, like to get these parcels back into taxpayers' hands.
Yeah, you bet. Tim?
Yeah, there again, finding this homeless properties a home. I'd love to hear it come before us.
Okay, so I'm ready for a motion when you guys are.
Mr. Chair, I move that we do accept the bid from Michael Lopez for the purchase of the following assessors parcel numbers: 206-12016 for $400, 206-12017 for $150, and 206-12108 for $150, and authorize the chairman's signature on the quitclaim deeds.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Marion. Okay, number 3, consent agenda action items. Is there anything you guys would like to address or pull off?
Not for me, Mr. Chair.
I'm good, Mr. Chair.
And so am I, so I entertain a motion to accept those.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve consent agenda items 3A through 3I.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Number 4, call to the public. Cheryl, do you have any call to the public up there?
No, sir.
And Dave, do we have anybody on YouTube? No, we're good? And no one here as well. So we'll move on to updates. Mr. James, you have any updates for us?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to pass today. Thank you.
Okay. Tommy?
Oh, Mr. Chair, I continue to fight my head over all the property that we're letting burn and seeing to that it burns all over Gila County right now. And don't know what to do about it, actually, except fight my head. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tommy. Tim?
Yeah, the only good thing I can see is I don't have to worry about anything burning for a long time because there's nothing there to burn. But we have been blessed with a little bit of rain, which is was kind of a soft rain in a lot of the areas, which helped put out some of the fires and helped just kind of soften the ground on the other fires and not wash it away. So maybe we'll be blessed with soft rains for a while to help some of this country come back. I have a Tunnel Basin meeting this evening. It's a call-in meeting, but I still try to have my public meetings to reach out to people so they can reach out to me. And so, anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you, Tim. So,
Mr. Chairman?
yes, sir.
In response to the fires, I just want to let you know that we did have a conversation with Patty Power yesterday afternoon, and that we continue to work for any resources that we can have that there is available for rehabilitation for these burned areas. It's significant, and it's if we do get rains, when we get rains, it's going to be another whole problem for us. So we're looking in Washington, D.C. for any resources we can to rehabilitate this land.
Thank you, James. And I suppose we still haven't had a lot back from NRCS, right? Homer?
Chairman and Board, Steve actually submitted 2 applications to NRCS for projects, one on Reno Creek to provide stream bank protection, and another one, Walnut Canyon, to remove a culvert that always plugs up and replace it with a low water crossing. We've submitted that. Both of them have a positive benefit cost ratio. Normally now it's in NRCS's hand to approve these projects, and then they would start in on the design. They would actually be doing some of the design work. So that's where we're at. We just submitted those last Friday, and so we're waiting for them to come back to us. Steve did all that work.
Thank you, Homer.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Everything helps.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Tommy.
have you all received the information from Lori Brown that she put together and applied to NRCS from a private landowner standpoint, and will get a lot of it? I have shared with every rancher that I can think of what she did. If I would almost think that the Gila County cattle growers might like to have a little seminar with Lori, walking them through those steps if they're interested.
Yeah.
Now that might be all, Mr. Chair.
No, that's good information, Tommy. Thank you. I've had some miscellaneous meetings here and there, but last week we were in Payson. Me and Kathy went to Payson for that. There's a demonstration on those sprinklers that the guy's manufacturing there in Payson. Went really well. Penny Pugh was there from Gosar's office. The Roundup was there. Michelle Nelson was there. Matt Pachorik, the district ranger, was there. The mayor was also there. One of the IDA members, Mac Freezer, was there, plus Bobby Davis. Bobby also came and looked at. It was a really good day, and I'm hoping that that'll kind of sink into some folks and maybe pick up some traction. It'd be a big plus to our county if that can go on. This Thursday, day after tomorrow, I'm going to be back in Payson for the local workforce board retreat and meetings. It's tomorrow, so I'll be there for that. And on that note, Gila County picked up 2 more board members. Bobby Davis is one of them, and James Bruzy is the other one. So, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, okay. Yeah, kind of. Kind of. Anyway, that's going to bring Gila County up to snuff on the board meetings. So, board meetings. Yeah, we'll be on the board meetings. Some of the other counties are still lacking some seats. And so we're going to be talking about that come Wednesday and everything else and go from there. Anyway, Kathy just gave me a note that the cattle growers are planning a meeting next week on Wednesday, September 9th at 10 o'clock. And that's to discuss some of these things, NRCS and some of these problems too. So might be a good one to attend on that one. I'm not sure where it is. Oh, it's here? They're going to use our boardroom then to do it? Perfect. Okay. Perfect. That would be good. And see what's floating around out there. Tuesday, September 8th, Tommy, I am going to go meet with the Yavapai Apache chairman regarding your Fossil Creek Upper Trails. And the intent is to sit down and visit with him and see if there's maybe some kind of way we can come up to using some of your trails going off into Fossil Creek on an emergency basis, and see if we can kind of take some more pressure off the rescues that are happening in there. So that's coming up Tuesday, September 8th, and that's a meeting in Camp Verde. So, other than
Very
that,
good, Mr. Chair.
other than that,
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Tommy. Hopefully we can come to some agreement on that and maybe resolve a few more issues. So, other than that, that's all I had. Did anybody else? James, you good still? Tim?
I'm good, Mr. Chair.
And Tommy, you're good?
I am, Mr. Chair, but I'm
Oh.
reading another thing on our live chat. Have they shown it to you?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
we do have at 1 o'clock today groundbreaking for the animal care facility here in Globe at the fairgrounds. So another great event that we will have, and we'll social distance and all that good stuff. But
Yeah.
thank you to Michael.
Michael, you got the champagne and stuff lined up? Is that good? James will pay for it, right? No, that sounds good. I look forward to that. That's going to be a really good deal to get kicked off and get that building going. That's going to be a good addition to our county right there. So we will be there. Yep. Thank you all for that. And with that, I'll adjourn the meeting.